What's going on, guys? I am your host, Rome. Welcome to the Broken Tables podcast. We're doing a little bit of an extra video tonight. For those of you who watched the episode of the Broken Tables podcast last night, episode 79, who was there for our Dynamite review, we talked a little bit about this Andrade Sammy Guevara story. And a day later, some things have changed. The story has evolved a little bit, and was talking with Jeff about, you know, cutting up the podcast to put out a video because I thought it was, I thought it was a really good segment that we did, and I thought that it was just, it really, captured how I felt. Very frustrated talking to some of you guys in the Discord, which if you're not in the Discord, you should join the Discord. It was just, I felt like I was kind of, everyone was kind of vibing the same way. So, I went back and listened to the audio last night. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a glitch, a little bit of an echo, if you would. And I figured, let's kind of sit down. Let's do an extra video for you guys here on this Thursday evening. With this big rampage tomorrow, just a little bit of an extra. So I figured we were going to kind of recap the Andrade Sammy Guevara story, kind of go into the updates that have happened since last night, and kind of just reiterate my thoughts. So let's start with, the beginning of the story, which is contract tampering. So unless you're living under a rock, Vince McMahon, they get rid of him over at the Fed. And so Triple H takes charge. And I really wanted to believe that things were going to be different with him. I really did. And I'm kind of disappointed, and I am disappointed to say that it's not. It's not better, it's not different. I dreamed of collaboration. I dreamed of an elite, no pun intended, North American wrestling industry. And for that to succeed, I do think that you need two large companies. Fortunately, Triple H has done things, and he's not about that. He wants to put AEW out of business, and he's just mad because he lost in the Wednesday Night War. What can you do? So where am I going with this? So basically, Triple H, he calls up his old black and gold buddies, his NXT kids, and he says, "Hey guys, why don't you come back to WWE? I'm in charge now. I'm running things. Contract tampering. We already know about that. We've talked about it many times here on the Broken Tables podcast. It's disgusting. It's gross. I don't fucks with it. And neither should you. Let's be real here." So one of those guys is Andrade. Triple H reaches out to Andrade, wants him to come back to WWE, promises him the world. I'm sure. So Andrade and a few of the other talent have been trying to get out of their contracts. Tony Khan's made it clear he's not letting people go. He's not going to release people from these contracts, knowing that they're going to go to WWE. And I feel like, number one, this is a really hot topic in the cesspool that is Twitter, in a sense that people are arguing about what's the right thing for Tony Khan to do. Is it right for him to let these talent out of their contracts, knowing where they're going, knowing what the end goal is? Does he keep them under contract? Does he keep bringing them to TV and acting like nothing's changed? Or does he explore other options? Well, unfortunately, we're seeing the side effects of trying to use one of those guys. So one of those guys is Andrade. Andrade does this interview last weekend. It was called Mas Lucha. And he brings up a few different things. He talks about, kind of throws AAA under the bus, which is really not a good look, considering that AEW, AAA have a working relationship, or, FTR are their World Tag Team Champions. Tony Khan has a good relationship with AAA. But so Andrade starts shitting on AAA. He admits that he talks to Triple H and does the contract tampering. He says that I can't legally talk to Triple H, but my wife can, Charlotte, who works for me. Which, again, I can't stress this enough. It's just fucking gross. It's really nasty shit. And I'm not going to... I'm just not going to sit here and just fucking act like it doesn't exist like some people. It's not right. So, moving forward, we have, in this interview, Andrade, he takes a shot at Sammy Guevara, telling a story about how Sammy says that he hits him too hard and this whole nonsense. Andrade wants to get fired. Andrade wants to get fired. And Andrade wants to get out of his contract. So he's going to cause as much shit as he possibly can. He's been going on Twitter, hashtag free Andrade El Idolo, just all this dumb shit. They set up a match for this Friday originally on Rampage. It was a mask versus career in AEW. It was 10 versus Andrade. And so a lot of people were wondering, was 10 going to lose his mask in this match, or was Andrade going to be done with AEW? There was an edict put out that Tony Khan was not going to release any talent. We know this. So, knowing this, Andrade is going to do everything he can to get out of his contract, because that's what he wants to do. So basically, he starts shit with Sammy Guevara, knowing that Sammy is not the most mature. Andrade knew exactly what he was doing here. Andrade knew that if he had to pick a fight with someone, he knew that Sammy was one of those guys who was not going to just let it go. So Andrade says this in the interview. It builds traction. Sammy Guevara tweets out, I believe it was a few days later, "You were a favor hire from your father-in-law. You were a jobber." And basically, I'm not going to sit here and read off the tweets verbatim. You guys can go and do that if you'd like. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's worth the precious moments that we have on this earth, to be honest. And so, basically, this ends up with the two of them bickering and arguing on Twitter, and Andrade saying that he'll see Sammy Wednesday. Obviously implying that there will be a fight. So, leading up to Dynamite yesterday, both Sammy and Andrade were talked to and said, hey, no fighting. We're trying to fix... we're keeping shit internal. We're trying to handle things the right way. We don't want to see this escalate. Let it go. And according to sources, both Andrade and Sammy assured them, the higher-ups at AEW, there would be no fighting. There would be no arguing. That was the plan. Fortunately, that's not what happened. So yesterday, as Dynamite was starting, for those of you who are aware, report came out that there was an altercation backstage between Sammy and Andrade, and that both of them were sent home. Originally, the report came out via Fightful, but it also came out via TMZ. And in the original report, as we discussed last night, it said that Sammy took the first punch, punches were thrown, it was a legitimate fight, and that both guys were sent home. Well, as we're watching Dynamite, I'm in our Discord once again, which you should definitely join. We have some great conversations there. The discussion is brought up of, is Sammy going to be in the main event? Because Sammy Guevara is teaming with Chris Jericho in the main event. A few segments into the show, we see a promo with the JS. Sammy's still there. The match is still on. And yesterday on the Broken Tables podcast, I had some really choice words to say about sending Sammy home and sending Andrade home and what the right thing to do. And I'm going to reiterate that in a few minutes. But, I just want to start by saying that, I reacted to the news at the moment it came out. I think that Sammy is not innocent in this, but I've definitely cooled off on Sammy, knowing that the story that we were told yesterday was Andrade's story. Brian Alvarez talked to a bunch of people backstage at AEW, and basically every story says that Sammy was trying to avoid a conflict and that Andrade sucker punched Sammy. That obviously changes the scenario. I think it's just disgusting. I think it's awful, and it's just not a good way to do business. I think on Andrade's part, it's extremely unprofessional. I understand you have Triple H in your ear. Like, first of all, fuck Triple H. Second of all, it's just not a healthy way to do business. If you want out of your contract, that sucks. Don't sign a contract. And that's just that's how it works. That's how the contracts work. You sign a contract, you're given a contract, read it over. This is how long your length of your contract is. This is all of the things that pertain to your contract, you working for this company. If you don't like it, don't sign it. You shouldn't have signed the contract. I don't have any sympathy for you on that. So the story comes out, like I said, that Sammy really wasn't part of the fight. It was basically Andrade sucker punched Sammy, and basically the fight's broken out. broken up, and Andrade is promptly sent home, being told, "You're trying to get out of your contract. You're not going to be. Go the fuck home." And I really think, I feel like this is a really hot topic right now about what's the right thing to do with Andrade. Because, number one, you have to do something. A precedent needs to be set. You can't have these guys, a very small minority of the locker room, causing this trouble. Again, Brian Alvarez on The Observer today, he's talking about how 97, 98-ish percent, 96%, a very large amount of the locker room is very happy with AEW. And Fightful was reporting that a lot of people were very upset that all of this went down. And I think you just kind of have to stop and officially look and say that Andrade is a cancer in your locker room. And you need to do something about it. Because if you don't do something about it, it's going to continue to get worse. He is a cancer, going to slowly get worse until people don't want to work there. And I don't think that this isn't a knock against Tony Khan, but it's getting to a point where something needs to change. And I sympathize with Tony, because you don't want to just release Andrade, because number one, you're giving him what he wants. You're setting a precedent that if you fire Andrade here, the Malachi Blacks, the Buddy Murphys, anyone else that wants to leave AEW, if I just show up to TV and deck a guy and just punch him in the face, I'll get out of my contract. I don't think that's right, and I don't think that it is the correct way to handle this. I think that at the end of the day, whether people want to admit it or not, and if you're not admitting it, you're just, if you're in denial, you're just fucking naive. This is a wrestling war. This is absolutely a war. It was made a war by the Fed, by WWE, and you just gotta, you gotta understand that Tony Khan needs to play this game of chess very carefully and protect his pieces, because as we've seen in the literal 2-3 months that Triple H has been in charge, he is a fucking scumbag. He will do anything to get AEW out of business. And right now, his objective, mission accomplished, in a sense that he's caused all this turmoil. And I just think it's so funny that week in and week out, we have this fucking controversy, this turmoil, this backstage bullshit, these lies being spread, the stories being spun, and then every week we sit down, we watch Dynamite and Rampage, and the shows are fucking phenomenal. This month of AEW television is some of the best TV they've done in a long time, and that's without CM Punk, and without the Elite, and without, others. MJF's back, so not MJF, but, they've been, they're not at 100%. Adam Cole still isn't back, and it's just, they're still just, the locker room is stepped up. A lot of the young guys have been featured, and they've been the focus of the show, and I think that that's to be commended. I think that that's fantastic. But, anyways, so Andrade wants out of his contract. You don't release Andrade. That's a precedent. It's a really bad precedent, in my opinion. I think that what you do, because you don't want to keep Andrade in your locker room. You don't. Again, we've established that. Complete cancer. This dude should be nowhere near your fucking locker room ever again. And I also don't think fire him. I think that the best thing to do, and I said this last night, is send him the fuck home. Say, okay, you don't want to work? See you later. Bye-bye. Bye, Andrade. Go sit at home for 3 years. You signed a contract. You're here for 3 years. Go sit at home. And a lot of people are arguing oh, that's scummy. It's not scummy, because people aren't looking at this correctly. Oh, just release him. Just let him go. You can't just let the guy go, because if you do that, people are just going to do whatever the fuck they want to get out of contract. And you just can't do that. But at the same time, you can't keep him in your locker room. So that's why you send him home. You send him home. You say, all right, man, well, you're under contract for 3 years. Go home. See you later. And by doing that, you're succeeding in what you need to do. You are keeping him from signing with WWE, aka what he wants to do. The whole point of why he's doing this is so he can go back there. And it's understandable that you don't want guys being signed by Triple H, because Triple H is going to go back to hoarding these talent. He's going to try to suffocate the free agent market and make it harder for AEW to bring in fresh new talent. That's what he's going to do. So to avoid that, and to avoid the cancer to your locker room, you send him home. And you tell him, all right, well, see you later. And in 3 years, when his contract's up, if Triple Paul still wants him, go ahead. Go work there. That's you know, you can't keep him under, you can't keep him out of there forever, obviously, but it's the right thing to do. You can't set a precedent like that. You need to set a precedent in a sense that you can't fuck with the company backstage. If you cause turmoil, you're going to be sent home. You're not going to get what you want. You're not going to go to the other place. You are going to sit at home for the remainder of your contract. And you'll still get paid, sure, but you're going to be out of sight, out of mind. And I think at the end of the day, that's just the right way to do it. So, bigger question is, what do you guys think about it? What do you think is the right call for Tony Khan to make here? Do you think that he should just fire these people and let them go and do what they want? Do you, and if so, please comment on this, because I'm legitimately curious to hear this. Do you not think that that sets a bad precedent? Do you agree with me that we should be sending them home and just letting them sit out their contracts? Suspend them. Suspensions and sending them home is the right thing to do. Or do you think that Tony Khan should just try to utilize his talent? And I mean, clearly they're still putting on great television, so what's the harm, you might argue? I would argue that there is still harm to the locker room, but maybe someone out there doesn't think that. Please leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you think. We go live on YouTube following every single Dynamite and Rampage. Rampage is tomorrow. We got a live Rampage coming up. Super excited for it. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here tonight. Let me know what you think. Again, feedback is much appreciated. This is the first kind of extra that we're kind of doing in terms of a bit of a longer video. We kind of usually just do little short videos, but I figured this was kind of a cool little thing we could do. Plus, with the story and the bad audio yesterday, I figured it was a good idea. So, with that being said, guys, we will see you guys next time. Top Guy out.